Hello. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Welcome and thank you for being part of the Big Bold Jewish Climate Fest. Together, we're making climate action a central moral issue of the Jewish community. We're so happy to have you joining our Seder today, joining our Spirit Symbols, Snacks, and Songs Seder. And I'd like to introduce you to the four fabulous organizations and partners co-hosting this Tu B'Shvat Seder with us today. Melissa Hoffman is the director of the Jewish Initiative for Animals, which is a leading animal welfare and sustainable food sourcing project dedicated to helping institutions align their food choices with their Jewish values. Lisa Apfelberg is the director of Shamayim, Jewish Animal Advocacy. Shamayim is a national nonprofit that teaches the Jewish community about animal advocacy and veganism through its programs and educational content. Shamayim is excited to be building, growing, and connecting the Jewish ethical eating community. Sarah Eichler is the program director at Jewish Veg, which is a national nonprofit that inspires and assists Jews to adopt plant-based diets as an expression of Jewish values. And I am Becky O'Brien, and I have wonderful earrings. So I want everybody to please admire my wonderful dragon fruit earrings in honor of Tu B'Shvat. I am the director of food and climate at Hazon. Hazon means vision, and it's a national organization that helps Jewish individuals and organizations create a healthier, more environmentally sustainable, and more equitable Jewish community and world for all. Thank you so much for being here. And we are recording this program, so please note that. And we'll get that going actually. And I want to first just let you know that we have a couple of viewing options that you are in control of. At the top of your screen, you can see that there's a little graphic that says view in your top right corner. And if you are seeing lots of little pictures all over your screen, you're in the gallery view. If you click on that, you will then go to the speaker view. And what that will do is make whoever's speaking take up the majority of the screen. And then there will be like a little strip of other people in the program. And you are welcome to use whichever one you want during the program. However, throughout, we will signal that you may prefer certain ones based on the design of what we're doing here today. And we really hope that you will take the time to see and appreciate the other people on the screen. And so enjoy that gallery speaker view and play around with it and see what works best for you. If you registered more than 3 hours ago, which is most of you, but actually not all of you, we had a lot of latecomers, last minute folks that we're very glad are here. We did send out an email with information for materials that we strongly encourage you to have available during the Seder. And hopefully you have those with you. But if you don't, no worries. It's totally fine. You're going to have a great experience anyway. But if you're feeling like a little out of the loop, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to have that. It's just you didn't get that email because of when you signed up or didn't read the email or whatever. But no problem. And we're glad you're here. I also want to flag that in that email, there was a link to a Google Drive folder that had tree images. And if you would like to have a tree image in your background, you can pick one from there or share one from your own collection, totally optional, but we like to dress things up around here, get into the festive Tu B'Shvat mood. And so we made that available for you. And so if you want to do that, you can then also scroll through the screens of all our participants and check out everybody's backgrounds. So as we dive in, I invite you to be present. If possible, close your other windows, sit, get comfortable, and really do take time to look at the other people here. Make some eye contact, do a little waving and some smiling. If you see people on here that you know, send them a chat and let them know you're glad to see them here and connect with folks in that way. We also welcome you to rename yourself. And if you click on your own image, your own box, you'll see a little square in the top right corner that has 3 little dots. And if you click on that, you'll see an option to rename. And we invite you to share your name, pronouns, location, and your favorite tree in the chat. So I renamed myself Becky Bristlecone Pine. I love the bristlecone pine, native in Colorado. So feel free to do that and to drop information in the chat as well. Share your names through the chat and through renaming. So we're going to dive in, get started, get all that business out of the way. Thank you again for being here. And I'd like to share some information about what Tu B'Shvat actually is and give some context for why this is such an important and exciting holiday for the 4 organizations hosting this program. So you can trace the history of Tu B'Shvat Seders like branches on a tree. Seders, like trees, grow branches, and the branches sprout fruit in all directions. The roots of Tu B'Shvat stretch back to the beginnings of organized Jewish life. We learn from the Mishnah that the new year of the trees, the 15th of Shevat, which is what Tu B'Shvat means, that the new year of the trees divided the tithing of one year's crop from the next. It marks the end and start of the tax year. After the expulsion from the land of Israel, Tu B'Shvat went underground like a seed, ungerminated, lying beneath the soil of Jewish thought and life. The next and second expression of Tu B'Shvat came upon the heels of the expulsion from Spain in 1492 that scattered Jews in many directions, and some of those Jews landed in Sfat. Like a forest fire that cracks open seeds dormant for decades, Sfat's Kabbalists rediscovered Tu B'Shvat and began a period of mystical celebration of the festival. And the idea and structure of Tu B'Shvat Seders, like the one we're celebrating tonight, traces back to them. Then hundreds of years later, among the early Zionists, Tu B'Shvat found its 3rd reincarnation and became the day to celebrate the Zionist reconnection to the land of Israel. Many of us remember those JNF blue boxes and the tree certificates at Tu B'Shvat, and Israeli school kids to this day celebrate Tu B'Shvat by planting trees. The 4th phase of Tu B'Shvat's flowering was pollinated by the first Earth Day in 1970 and was contributed to by the growing alarm at the degradation of the planet and its resources. And this contemporary phase was fertilized by the countercultural Havurah movement and the beginnings of an upsurge in Jewish renewal and creativity. So these various origins of Tu B'Shvat remind us that us here today, are the descendants of an indigenous people. We are heirs to an ancient wisdom whose echoes can inform our choices today on subjects like how to eat in a manner that is healthy for us and sustainable for the whole planet. So today's Tu B'Shvat Seders grow organically from more than 2,000 years of Jewish tradition. Yet vital elements of them are new and reflect the world we live in. The encounter of postmodern urban life with contemporary environmental challenges, renewing Jewish life in unanticipated ways. It is an opportunity to deepen our roots and to branch out afresh to engage the world. Tu B'Shvat's a time for us to consider our habits and commitments so we can, as a nation and as citizens of this planet, mitigate climate change and reduce our negative impact on our fellow creatures. Just as Rosh Hashanah is a time of ritual celebration and of personal reflection around our choices, so too, Tu B'Shvat is a time for ritual celebration and personal reflection around humanity's stewardship of trees and of the earth. Just as Rosh Hashanah and the secular New Year remind us of how important our biggest and smallest choices truly are, so too we must take action on Tu B'Shvat for the trees and for the earth. And that is why this holiday is so compelling for our host organizations, Hazon, Jewish Initiative for Animals, Jewish Veg, and Shamayim. And we so enjoyed designing this experience for you today, and we're glad you're here. So the Tu B'Shvat Seder is modeled after the Passover Seder. It's likely that the Kabbalists thought something along these lines. So it's springtime. It's a springtime celebration on the full moon. Let's do a version of what we do at Pesach. Let's have a Tu B'Shvat Seder like we have a Passover Seder. Let's have 4 cups of wine or juice like we have 4 cups at the Pesach Seder. Let's eat special foods and have a special meal like we do at the Pesach Seder. Let's have questions and texts like we do at the Pesach Seder. So that's what we're doing tonight. The Seder is organized into 4 sections, and each is correlated with one of the 4 mystical Kabbalistic worlds that come from those Sfat Kabbalistic roots that we talked about. And then each section will have a cup of wine and a symbolic food, and we've embellished that with some texts and activities. And so with that, I will open us with a kavanah, or an intention, and then turn it over to my colleagues to lead us. And I also want to just flag that my colleague Rebecca Eisen is with us today, and she's running tech, and she has renamed herself not after her favorite tree, but after tech, all caps. So if you're having any issues, please just scroll through the chat list and you can pick out tech and send a note to Rebecca directly, and she'll see if she can help you out with whatever's going on. But with that, we will begin. Deep breath, stretch, get comfortable. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel taught us that our goal should be to live life in radical amazement, to look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Everything is phenomenal. Everything is incredible. To be spiritual is to be constantly amazed. This Seder is meant to kindle that sense of radical amazement, to awaken our senses through spirit, song, snacks, and symbol. May Tu B'Shvat ignite within us a humbling excitement about the majesty of the natural world and humanity's, our responsibility to steward it. Now, over to my colleagues.
Thank you, Becky. So as Becky shared, we will be using the framework of the Kabbalistic 4 worlds for our Seder. So you can think of the 4 worlds as these 4 spheres of life and thought and soul that rise up like soap bubbles. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes they drift apart, but their motion is always that lifting upwards. The 4 worlds also correlate with the 4 seasons, the 4 directions, the 4 elements, and as you'll see, 4 cups of wine or grape juice and 4 fruits. So the first of these 4 worlds of Kabbalistic thought is Asiyah, the world of action. In Asiyah, we see distinction and separation, are aware of our physical bodies and active selves. Our responsibilities live here, our tasks and daily lives. This is where we are rooted, earthbound, and grounded. So our first cup of wine or grape juice is pure white, because we are at the point of beginning, the initial separation of light and dark, that first spark of life. So as we bless this first cup, we envision winter, the settled snow, and all that lies beneath. So I will pour my first cup of grape juice. And I'll give you a moment to do the same. And we recite together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
In the first world, we will be eating fruits that include all citrus fruits, all nuts, pomegranates, sawbrush, butternut squash, pumpkin, bananas, and pineapples. These fruits are hard on the outside and soft on the inside. The hard shell can symbolize the protection that the earth gives us and reminds us to nourish the strength and healing power of our bodies. In the context of climate change and environmental responsibility, there's a lot of discussion about who is responsible, the individual or the larger society. An article from the Sierra Club discusses this, whether or not large political systems and corporations need to be responsible for climate change, or if we individually need to change our actions. Their conclusion is that it really requires both approaches, and that to rely only on one lets the other side off the hook. They argue that once you start to change your individual behavior, you're also likely to demand that the larger systems do as well. The quote that I like from this article is, when we take responsibility for the environmental consequences of our daily actions, we feel like we are in control. And when you're in control of your own life, perhaps then you'll feel more empowered to take control of, or at least play a role in, larger political systems. Please take a moment at this time to share in the chat your answer to this question. What individual actions are you committed to doing for yourself to help care this year, to help care for the environment?
Amazing. I'm seeing some awesome answers to Lisa's question coming into the chat. Please keep them coming. And we're going to move on to the next section, which is probably the most exciting section of all the 4 worlds, the part where we engage with our food directly with the fruits and edible parts and smellable parts of the Seder. So for our Seder today, we encouraged you to find foods from all across the fruity spectrum. And you may have noticed if you got that pre-Seder email that Becky was mentioning, that we included a few fruits in there that you may have never thought of as fruits before, like squashes and even beans. Yes, beans, string beans are technically also fruits. So actually just quick like show of hands oh, can you see my zucchini? Yeah, okay. A quick show of hands, who actually knew that those things were botanical fruits? I feel like we're gonna have a lot of people on this call who knew that. Nice. So yeah, so some might have been unexpected to you. Eggplant, green pepper, okra, they're all botanical fruits. And you also saw that we encouraged you to use fruits that are traditionally preserved with methods like drying or freezing or canning. So if you live in an area, especially of the country where fresh seasonal produce is not yet available because our seasons don't exactly align with the seasons of the Middle East. And given that most of our produce travels hundreds and on average over 1,000 miles to get to our stores, on Tu B'Shvat, of course, we thought it was appropriate to honor the earth by recommitting ourselves to the foods that are produced and provided in less intensive ways. So the blessing for different kinds of fruits can be found in a link that's going to get dropped into the chat if you're not quite sure which bracha to say over your fruit, because it can be borei pri ha'etz or ha'adama, fruit of the vine or fruit of the earth, and fruit of the tree or fruit of the earth. If you're able, if your video is on, it would also be great if people do a quick, maybe share a wave of what you're eating today, what you're about to eat of your first fruit. I see a banana, I see a tangerine, I see blueberries maybe. Amazing. Nice. I think that's a Roma tomato in someone's hand. Great. I'm sure there's a whole assortment. And now I want you to take the next minute with me to really analyze this small bounty. And we're going to use all of our senses. So first I want you to take that fruit and I want you to feel the outer texture. What does it feel like? Is it plump? Is it juicy? Is the outside smooth or is it rough? Does it have any ridges, bumps? Really give it a once over. And then you're going to hold it up to your nose and try and see what it smells like. Is it neutral? Is it faint? Is there a faint smell to it? Is it pungent? Maybe I have a tangerine in front of me, so maybe like if you give it a little scratch, you get the pungency of that citrusy smell. And then if you can, you're going to take a look at your fruit or nut. What does it look like? Are there distinct shapes or colors that you notice? And even though your fruit itself might not make a sound, if you can maybe thump it or give it a little like tap, you might be able, without doing too much damage, of course, you might find out how dense or how hollow your fruit is by doing that. And finally, before we taste, which of course draws upon all of the previous senses, we'll acknowledge the gift of this food with a bracha, with a blessing. And we'll recite the bracha this time with feminine language, which might invoke the nurturing of Mother Nature or feminine aspects of the Holy One, whichever connection resonates with you. And that will get dropped into the chat as well. And so we'll hold up our fruit for this section, fruit or nut for this section, and recite together. And I actually don't, do we have the bracha in there already? One of my hosts can maybe confirm. There it is. So we'll recite together. The words are Brucha Atya, Mekor HaChayim, Boret Pri Ha'etz, or Boret Pri Ha'adama. And I'm saying it over Ha'etz, so I'm going to recite. Brucha Atya Mekor HaChayim, Boret Pri Ha'etz. Amen. Blessed are you, God, source of all life, creator of the fruit of the trees. While you're savoring those chews, you can share in the chat as well what you noticed, perhaps for the first time, if this was a fruit or nut that you eat regularly. Did it add anything to go through the different senses and engage all of them before taking a bite? Or maybe this is something that you eat seldomly, and how did that affect your experience? I'll give you a few seconds to drop into the chat any reactions or reflections.
It says that my chat is disabled, but
Chat is disabled.
Thank you. We will figure that out.
It should be set now.
Thanks, Rebecca. So yeah, again, if anyone wants to share some reflections or share if you hadn't yet what you ate for the first bracha today, feel free to drop that into the chat. I love that. I noticed everyone is smiling. Beautiful. Someone wrote that they were eating figs and that they noticed the seeds in the gel this time around. So we're going to move on to our second world. This is the second portion of the Seder, and this is the world or realm of Yetzirah, which means formation. And it's connected to springtime. So for those of you who are maybe in the Northeast or in places where it doesn't quite feel like spring, you can kind of conjure spring in your minds. For this section, we eat fruits without protective inedible shells to symbolize how in the spring we get to kind of shed our own protective layers. I want to dedicate this world of formation to our flighted friends, the birds, because they not only have significance in symbolizing rebirth in Jewish tradition. You can think of the raven or the dove in the story of Noah's Ark, but their relationships with trees are symbiotic. So sometimes they're pollinators of trees. Sometimes birds like woodpeckers are actually creating habitats for other animals in the trees and help the ecosystem. And birds are also generally most attracted to fruits that have dark, vibrant colors, especially reds. So you can imagine as we drink this next glass of wine, which will be, or juice, which will be this time half white, half red. You can imagine the birds experiencing flashes of color as part of spring, starting to see that return to the trees. So together, we are going to take I'm just going to grab my half red, half white glass. I pre-poured because I definitely didn't trust myself to do it during the call. And we're going to recite together this will also be dropped into the chat, the blessing over the juice or wine, again in the feminine language. Brucha atiyah mekor hachayim, boret pri hagafen. Blessed are you, God, source of all life, creator of the fruit of the vine.
Fruits for this world include apricots, cherries, dates, mangoes, nectarines, olives, peaches, and plums. This fruit is soft with a pit in the center, and it can symbolize the life-sustaining power that emanates from the earth. It reminds us of the spiritual and emotional strength that is within each of us. In thinking about the strength within each of us, I'm reminded that the compassion that many of us feel for others, especially animals, needs to first start with compassion for ourselves. The Dalai Lama says that we feel compassion in the form of concern when we see others suffering, and we feel motivated to relieve that suffering. But it is first important to have compassion for our own selves before we can feel compassionate for others. If you are able to, please hold up your fruit for this world, and you are welcome to type into the chat again what you've provided for this part of our Seder, and we will recite the blessing for this fruit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri ha'etz. Blessed are you, God, source of all life, creator of the fruits of the trees. Amen.
And you'll have to give me a moment to finish. There we go. All right. So Yetzirah, the world that we're in now, is the world of formation and interrelation. So this is where we live in our emotions, where we form connections and come together. The compassion that Lisa mentioned that we nurture in ourselves flourishes in Yetzirah, the world of heart and of care. So as we move through the sphere of Yetzirah, I'd like to ask you to take a moment and envision a truly compassionate world. What does that look like to you? What does it feel like, taste like, smell like, sound like? When you're ready, I want you to go ahead and type into the chat a word or a short phrase that encapsulates your vision of a compassionate world. Harmony, kind, happy cows, peace, lots of peace. Everyone is fed, a world with love, food for all, vegan, racial justice, no suffering, lack of cruelty, clean air, anti-racism. So some really fantastic responses. And as you continue sharing those responses, I want you to picture a tree. This is a tree of our collective making, firmly rooted in this world of Yetzirah. Its broad trunk flows and tapers into delicate curling branches, which hold aloft and hold out its unfurling leaves. The branches of this tree stretch out in all directions, down towards our roots, out towards each other, and up towards the heavens and our highest selves. And in the trunk of this tree is the sap, the water of the world of Yetzirah, which flows through its branches into its leaves and the buds that will become its fruits. And the kavanot, the intentions of compassion and care that we carry through us, that flow through this tree, bear their fruit in the world that we create together. So what could that look like? Well, we wanted to share with you one vision of what a compassionate, collaborative world could be. So we will continue to update this tree with all of our visions as we move now into the sphere of Bria.
Thank you, Sarah. So we're in our third world. This is a world check. We're in world number 3, and we're in the world of Bria, of creation, which is associated with the season of summer and the element of air. Now, the root of the word neshama, what we translate as soul, is also coming from linshom, the Hebrew word meaning to breathe. And breathing, of course, depends upon the health of our greater living community, which also nourishes our spirit or our soul. In pouring a mostly red and partly white glass of juice or wine, again, this is going to be a mostly red, partly white, so roughly 3/4 red, roughly 1/4 white glass of juice or wine. You can think of your own blood cells carrying oxygen, the oxygen you need to sustain your brain, your heart, your limbs, And you can think of yourself within the greater living, breathing superorganism of this earth, inhaling and exhaling to sustain all life. And we'll recite together the bracha, should be in the chat. There we go. And oh, let me grab my glass. Bruchat yamekor hachayim boret peri hagafen. Blessed are you, God, source of all life, creator of the fruit of the vine.
The third world is represented by fruits that are edible throughout. These fruits are berries, figs, kumquats, persimmons, starfruit, and in my case, a tomato. This type symbolizes God's omnipresence and our own inextricable ties with the earth. Because this fruit symbolizes mystery and learning, I began to think about all that we've learned about the ways that we eat and the impact our food choices have on our planet and climate. It can be argued that veganism is the most environmentally friendly way to eat. It is also the most efficient way to feed the people who live on our planet, and it is undoubtedly the kindest and most compassionate. I want to share a few quotes from prominent vegans here. Angela Davis asked, how can we not only discover more compassionate relations with human beings, but how can we develop compassionate relations with the other creatures with whom we share this planet? Cesar Chavez stated, only when we have become nonviolent towards all life will we have learned to live well ourselves. And the Buddha prays, may all that have life be delivered from suffering. If you are able, please hold up your fruit, and you are again welcome to type into the chat what you've provided for this part of our Seder. And now we will recite a blessing for this fruit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri ha'adamah. Blessed are you, God, source of all life, creator of the fruits of the earth. Amen.
So in Bria, we are participants in the ongoing creation of the world. In the sphere of spirit and wind and breath, we turn to thought and to art, to study and to poetry. So one of my favorite poets of all time is Marge Piercy, and she wrote this poem about Tu B'Shvat called The New Year of the Trees. It is the new year of the trees, but here the ground is frozen under the crust of snow. The trees snooze their buds tight as nuts. Rhododendron leaves roll up their stiff scrolls. In the white and green north of the diaspora, I am stirred by a season that will not arrive for 6 weeks, as wines on far continents prickle to bubbles when their native vines bloom. What blossoms here are birds, jostling at feeders, picking sunflower seeds and millet through the snow, tulip, red cardinal, daffodil, finch, larkspur, jay, the pansy bed of sparrows and juncos, all hungry. They too are planters of trees, spreading seeds of favorites along fences. On the earth closed to us all as a book in a language we cannot yet read, the seeds, the bulbs, the eggs of the fervid green year await release. Over them, on February's cold table, I spread a feast. Wings rustle like summer leaves. And so what I love about that poem is that it gives you such a sense of place, of how strange it is to be celebrating the spring holiday in the still wintry world of the poet. Marge Piercy actually lives in the same place I live, which is Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and it's not spring here. It is currently snowing. So what I want to do, as inspired by this poem, is invite us all to take the next 5 minutes and do a free write around what it's like to celebrate Tu B'Shvat where you are right now today. So if you've never done a free write before, what I mean by that is you take your pencil and your paper or your computer or your phone or whatever you write on, and for the next 5 minutes, you just continuously write whatever comes into your head, even if it's, I don't know what to write. So don't worry about spelling and grammar. Don't worry about complete sentences. Don't worry about making sense. No one is going to see this but you. We're not going to share these. We're just going to take the next 5 minutes to really experience what it is like to celebrate Tu B'Shvat where you are right now. So I'm going to set a timer. And we are going to go now. Thank you, Becky. So I hope that exercise gave you a sense of how you are currently feeling and being in the space that you are in right now. So we're going to move from that sphere to the fourth and final sphere, the world of Atzilut, of essence, of pure being. So we've moved through our groundedness, our flow of self, our breath and higher thought, and we come now to our highest spirituality, our fire of spirit. Our fourth cup of wine or grape juice is pure red. As we recite the blessing this time, we come into our fullness of self and spirit, just like a tree in full bloom. And I did not pre-pour glasses, so please bear with me as I pour my fourth glass. And we recite together, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen.
In an attempt to gain an understanding of the divine implications of this realm, we do as our ancestors did and look to the tree as a symbol of life, a life of replenishing the earth and a life of balance in which there is an inherent understanding of the place of both humans and nature. The fruit that we've had symbolizes the mystery of the world and our study of Torah. We are constantly seeking to uncover her secrets and are continually nourished by her fruits. The fruit of this world is only smelled and not eaten. This action sustains us spiritually since we aren't actually eating it. Take a fragrant fruit and let's recite the following blessing that will be put in the chat before we eat it. Before we smell it, sorry. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanotein reach tov baperot. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who gives a pleasant smell to fruit. And now everyone can smell their fruit. I want to share some final thoughts about trees. Trees hold beauty and power and are central to many ancient and contemporary traditions. We recognize the energy and strength that these tall plants embody. In other cultures, trees symbolize nature, balance, fertility, and stability. Trees are one of the great mysteries of the world, with some of the oldest living up to and over 5,000 years. If you have ever set foot in the redwoods of California, you would have witnessed the wonder and size of some of the tallest trees on this planet. Sadly, billions of trees are cut down every year, and the main contributor to deforestation is the animal agriculture industry. As the world's forests continue to disappear, tree planting has never been more important than now. Also, consider our diets and what we eat. A shift in our diets and our demands can reduce the need for deforestation for cattle to graze. Consider planting a tree, because when you do, you are not only giving life to a tree, you are ensuring the life of the planet. Trees have so many wonderful benefits to the ecosystem. What could be more healing and sacred than that? If you can't personally plant a tree, consider donating time or funds to a foundation that cares for trees. A tree planted in someone's memory is a living tribute that benefits present and future generations and is perhaps the most fitting memorial gift of all. Next time you pass by a tree, remember its spiritual power and all the wonderful gifts it gives to humanity and the planet, and enjoy its beauty.
Thank you, Lisa. So in wrapping up this fourth world, I want to acknowledge that we did name this Seder Spirit Symbols, Snacks, and Song. And we're going a bit lighter on the fourth because of the inherent challenges of singing together on Zoom. But we are going to end with a song, and I hope you find the time, perhaps not tonight if it's already late by you, maybe tomorrow, to go outside and hear the songs around you, from the trees, from the animals. Hear what's going on outside. Often we're the ones who haven't trained our ears to pay attention to them, and so much good can come from us attuning ourselves to what the rest of the world is telling us. I also want to invite you at this time to rise if you're able. Think of being a tree, right? Stand up tall, maybe stretch out your back a little bit, create some space for some air to run through your body. And all of you will stay on mute, but we invite you to sing along. I'm going to slowly teach this as a nigun, as a wordless melody. We'll practice it, then we'll add in the words, our final blessing. Becky is going to lead us in that final blessing after you learn the tune, and that'll be our blessing over the food today and a prayer in the spirit of building back a healthier home. So here's how it goes. I'm sure some of you are already familiar with it. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai. Yai, dai, dai. That's it. That's the whole thing. If you're not already familiar with it, we're going to go through it a couple more times just so you get the hang of it, and then we'll add the words. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, dai, dai. Yai, dai, dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, dai, dai. Yai, dai, dai. And I can't help but notice that Sheila is playing a flute. Is it a flute? Would you unmute and play it for us? And I'll mute myself. That would be so amazing if you would share that with us. I don't want to put you on the spot. Can you unmute yourself, Sheila?
I was saying that I'm just kind of learning the melody. It's a very weird key for the flute that you're singing.
Oh, choose your own key if you can, if it's simple enough. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Welcome.
I know that so many of us are missing singing together and making music together, so I'm getting teary-eyed right now. That was so beautiful. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Becky now. She's going to lead us in our final blessing.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Melissa. All right, you've got the melody in your head, and I do miss all of your voices together, but it will be quite a cacophony if we all unmute. So please join me in your homes, unmute. Barik Rachmana Malka De'ama Mare Derhaka. You are the source of life for all that is, and your blessings flow through me. Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and with thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you. That's our blessing, to say that we have eaten and that we have blessed and that we have been blessed. And I will now invite Sarah to share, as she shared with you earlier, as we were all sharing our vision for this compassionate world. What might that look like as a tree? And so while we've been enjoying our wine and our fruits, we've been building that tree for you. Sarah, is that ready to share?
Yes, so this is the tree that we have built together. And I hope that you can, I zoomed in a little bit, so I hope you can see all of your comments are on here. That this is the world that we envision together.
Thank you. So as you're reading that, I want to invite you all to check out jewishclimatefest.org/action. As you know, this is one of more than 160 events happening as part of the Jewish Climate Fest to mobilize the Jewish community on climate and to celebrate Tu B'Shvat. And we are encouraging everybody to take action. And we set the tone for that here today. And if you go to jewishclimatefest.org, where you sign up for this program /action, there are 3 important ways you can take action right now so that we can make a difference as a community on climate. 1, you can add your name to our letter to President Biden and Congress to take serious climate action within the first 100 days. 2, you can commit to some new individual actions over the next 6 weeks, and you'll find there a link to the Brit Hazon program. And of the actions you could commit to are transitioning to more of a plant-based diet, so you can check that out. And 3, get your community involved. Gather friends or your congregation and work together to make a difference. And as I said, at jewishclimatefest.org/action, you will find concrete resources to help you take action now. And thank you for taking action. Together, we make a difference on climate and create a healthy, sustainable future for our community and for our children and grandchildren. And of course, check out everything else that's happening. We are really the kickoff to this event. So then we're at the very beginning. So you haven't missed much of anything. If you're just catching on, there's a Climate Fest going on. It kicks into gear tomorrow and goes straight through Sunday. And so I'm going to bring us to our closing. Thank you again so much to my partners, Sarah and Jewish Veg, Melissa with Jewish Initiative for Animals, Lisa at Shamayim, and on behalf of all of those guys and Hazon, I want to share that we opened with the Communal intention of nurturing a sense of radical amazement, and that this holiday and that this Seder ignite within each of us a humbling excitement about the majesty of the natural world and an excitement about your eternal responsibility, our eternal responsibility to steward it. These are grand words for sure, grand words and grand hope, but we hope it's hit some of these notes for you. And with that, Shana Tova, we have concluded. There are a whole bunch of us here, and if you need to go, you can go, but we're gonna now just like hang out and schmooze. So we're gonna keep the room open, and if you would like to hang out, and get off mute and say hi to your buddies and share some more about your Seder experience or anything else like that, we'd love to visit with you. So feel free to go, feel free to hang. Shana Tova.